In the long shadow of the Cataclysm, when the world of Krynn still bled from divine wrath, the elves of Qualinesti turned inward. They did so under the rule of one man, Solostaran Kanan, Speaker of the Sun. Welcome to another DragonLance Saga episode. My name is Adam, and today I'm going to talk about Solostaran Kanan, the Speaker of the Sun. I'd like to take a moment and thank the DL Saga YouTube members and Patreon patrons, and invite you to consider becoming a member or patron. You can even pick up DragonLance media using my affiliate links in the description below. I am referencing the Chronicles, the Tales of the Lance box set, and War of the Lance sourcebook for this information. If I leave anything out or misspeak, please leave a comment below. For more than 3 centuries, Solostaran ruled the Qualinesti during what mankind would later call the Age of Despair. It was a time without gods, without certainty, and without mercy. Though remembered as wise and fair, Solostaran was, above all else, a ruler shaped by loss, forced to choose survival over compassion, isolation over alliance, and duty over love. Solostaran was born into the royal family of Qualinesti, one of 3 brothers. Long before he ever wore the Medallion of the Sun, he was trained in governance, diplomacy, and restraint. He learned power slowly, deliberately, so that when it finally fell to him, he would not wield it rashly. His ascent to Speaker was not without challenge. In the unstable years following the Cataclysm, there were whispers, perhaps even open conflicts, that might have denied him the throne. Yet through the intervention of allies within the noble houses, Solostaran was confirmed as Speaker of the Sun, inheriting not just authority, but responsibility for a people traumatized by a broken world. And he ruled as a man who understood that burden all too well. Solostaran's earliest years as Speaker were marked by harsh but effective decrees. He withdrew elven forces from Pax Tharkaz, abandoning joint defenses with dwarves. He refused involvement in the Dwarfgate War, even when envoys from the Archmage Fistendanilus approached his borders. And most famously, most controversially, he banished all non-elves from Qualinesti, declaring the forest an inviolate homeland. To outsiders, these acts seemed cold, even cruel, but Solostaran believed something deeply and painfully simple. The elves could not save the world. He wept silently for Ansalon's refugees, but he believed humans and other races had to solve their own problems. If Qualinesti bled for every failing of the world, there would soon be no elves at all. On feast days and holy celebrations, Solostaran would climb alone to the top of the Tower of the Sun, ascending its endless stairs for reasons never recorded. Some say it was prayer, others say penance. Perhaps it was simply a ruler reminding himself how high he stood and how far he could fall. That belief that distance was mercy began to crack with the arrival of a child. In 248 Alt Cataclysm, Solostaran's brother, Solostaran Kanan, died. His widow arrived in Qualinesti bearing terrible news. She had been assaulted by a human brigand, and she carried a child. Solostaran hoped desperately that the child was his brother's. It was not. The infant Tantalus, later known as Tanis Half-Elven, was everything Solostaran feared, living proof of elven vulnerability and a reminder of the outside world he had tried to shut away. By his own beliefs, Tanis should never have been allowed within Qualinesti. Yet, Solostaran took him in. He raised the half-elf in his own homeland, watched as Tanis aged faster than elven children, outpacing Gilthanas and Lorana not in years, but in mortality. Through Tanis, Solostaran began to understand human fragility and human courage. His compassion grew, but it never fully conquered his prejudice. Even as he loved Tanis, Solostaran struggled to see him as a whole, once calling him half of 2 things and all of nothing. Decades later, another outsider would challenge Solostaran's certainties. In 288 AC, the Speaker took notice of finely wrought jewelry from a metalsmith in the human town of Solace. When he summoned the craftsman, Solostaran was surprised to find not a human, but a hill dwarf named Flint Fireforge. Flint became the first dwarf in over a century welcomed into Qualinesti. More than a smith, Flint became a friend to Solostaran and eventually to Tanis. Through Flint, the speaker was forced to confront a truth he had long avoided. Wisdom, loyalty, and honor were not elven virtues alone. Yet even this growth came with limits. When Tanis was accused falsely of murdering Eld Elia, Solostaran confined him and threatened exile as a dark elf. Only Flint's investigation uncovered the true traitor, Solostaran's own brother, Azrael Kanan. Tanis was freed, and soon after, he left. Secretly, Solostaran was relieved. With the rise of the dragon armies, Solostaran's long-feared reckoning arrived. The forest would not be spared. Recognizing that isolation had reached its end, Solostaran ordered preparations for exile. Scouts were sent across to Banasinia, a refuge was founded in southern Ergoth, Qualimori, and a fleet was constructed in secret. In 351 AC, the elves fled Qualinesti just as the Red Dragon army closed in. For the first time in centuries, Solostaran ruled a people without a homeland. Exile broke what centuries of rule had hardened. His wife fell gravely ill and vanished from record. His daughter, Laurana, defied him twice, first by leaving Qualinesti for Tanis, and later by stealing a dragon orb from his court to use against the dragon armies. When Laurana fled, Solostaran declared her dead to him, even at the Whitestone Council. Yet despite his bitterness, Solostaran committed elven forces to the war. He trusted increasingly in Porthios, his eldest son, granting him greater authority, perhaps knowing his own strength was fading. After the War of the Lance, Solostaran led his people home, but the forest he returned to was not the one he had left. Within 3 years, the Speaker of the Sun passed away, ending one of the longest reigns in elven history. He left behind a kingdom forever changed, and a son shaped by his example and his failures. Solostaran Kanan was not a hero of battle. He was a guardian, a ruler who believed restraint was strength, a father who loved deeply but imperfectly, a king who closed the gates to save his people and lived long enough to see that walls cannot stop the world forever. Under his rule, Qualinesti survived the Age of Despair, and sometimes survival is the hardest victory of all. And that is all I have to say about Solostaran Kanan. What would you have done differently if you were in his shoes? Was his initial racial decisions what cemented their ultimate retreat and fall as a nation? And finally, since Tanis was the half-brother by marriage to Laurana, should they have gotten married? Leave a comment below. I'd like to invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. It all helps other DragonLance fans learn about this channel and its content. Thank you for watching. This has been Adam with DragonLance Saga, and until next time, remember, I guess it must have fallen into my pack, Fizzban. That's it. See, my pack was sitting under that table. Wasn't that lucky? It would have broken if it had hit the floor.